Please, human, be my dad and my mom's husband, she whispered. And that's how a family was born.
The rain never stopped on Dravara 8. It didn't come in waves or sudden storms. It just fell, constant and indifferent, soaking everything until the colony rusted from the bones outward. Malric Thane sat alone in the dim, freight-checking outpost, its ceiling humming from the old generator tucked behind sagging crates. The room was narrow, steel walls patched with foam insulation, floors streaked with years of muddy boots and chemical stains. One monitor flickered above a bolted desk, displaying the day's scan logs. Mostly empty shipments, half of it unsorted, none of it urgent. He liked it that way. Malric was a manifest auditor, not a soldier, not a mechanic. He processed freight left behind in abandoned dock sectors, barcode crates, failed deliveries, and obsolete registries. His role was simple: scan, catalog, report. No questions, no people. And for the last 614 days, that solitude had been deliberate. He wasn't exiled exactly, but after losing his partner back on Raltari Prime, after watching a routine cargo delivery turn into a hostage incident that cost 5 lives, he requested transfer after transfer until he landed here. Dravara 8, a wet, corroded backwater colony no one remembered unless they needed something dumped. It was the last stop for unwanted things. Malric adjusted the collar of his thermal shirt and keyed in another log. He glanced at the time display. 2039. He hadn't spoken to another human in 3 weeks. The silence was steady, familiar. Then a knock. He froze. Not loud, just a soft, controlled tap on the outpost's front access panel. He waited. Another knock, weaker this time, as if whoever was out there wasn't sure they should continue. Malric stood slowly, unsure whether he was hearing things. He muted the screen and moved to the door, placing his hand just above the manual override. His pulse ticked faster. This sector was sealed off from public traffic. No transports dock here anymore. No traders passed through. And the shelter stations were at least 20 clicks west, past the collapsed fuel silos. He flipped the external camera. Nothing but static. The unit was corroded again. He unlatched the panel and pulled the door open. Outside stood a child, barefoot, drenched. Rain rolled down her thin shoulders. Her oversized robe, a stitched-together mess of fabric and insulation foam, clung to her like it had never fit to begin with. She had lavender skin, turning bluish at her joints from the cold. Her arms were thin, frail, too thin. She looked up with steady, unblinking silver-blue eyes. And then she spoke. "Please, human, be my dad, and my mom's husband." No fear, no trembling, just calm, soft desperation, like she was reading from a line she'd practiced but didn't understand. Behind her, slumped against the support beam, was a woman. She wasn't dead, not quite, but close. Her skin was darker, violet, bruised along the arms, the knees. Her long white hair stuck to her collarbones, tangled and matted. Her eyes were closed, jaw tight. She wore a ragged chest wrap made from some kind of ship canvas, knotted behind her back, and a translucent cloth over her hips, soaked and clinging to her thighs. No shoes, no bag, no cover. The child reached into her sleeve and offered a torn data sheet. Malric took it. Unclaimed biological asset. Status, discarded. Registry, voided. Origin, hybrid Arini/Allen. Offspring listed, 1. Retention priority, none. His heart sank. This wasn't a trick. It wasn't a setup. No one was coming to rob him. They were abandoned. Systematically, legally, and without ceremony. The girl watched him, waiting, not pleading, waiting, like she'd already knocked on 5 other doors that hadn't opened. Malric's mind spun. He'd read about these cases. Hybrids bred as domestic companions, sometimes traded or leased off colony. If the registration expired or the host lost their license, they were dumped. Technically not people, not in certain sectors. And if the child wasn't born in a clinic, if no one claimed her, she had no right to shelter. He looked at the woman again. She was swaying slightly, barely upright. No drones, no sirens, no pursuit, just indifference. That was worse. He didn't say anything. He stepped aside. The girl didn't smile. She nodded. One small practice nod. She turned back, took her mother's hand, fingers limp, and helped guide her inside. Neril, the woman, stumbled twice. Malric caught her arm once, cool to the touch. She flinched at first, then let him help her. He led them to the back storeroom, a narrow space meant for surplus crates, now half empty and warm. A portable heater glowed in the corner. He cleared a stack of canvas from the sleeping pad and gestured toward it. Neril sank to her knees. No questions, no hesitation. The girl sat beside her, pulling her soaked robe tighter around her knees. Malric handed her a towel, then a protein pack and water bottle. She didn't take them immediately. She waited for Neril to nod. Then the girl ate. Quick, hungry bites. Her eyes stayed on Malric the whole time. Neril said nothing. Her body trembled. Her wrap slipped slightly off one shoulder, exposing more bruising across her ribs. She made no move to fix it. Malric averted his eyes and stood. He moved to the adjacent room and sat at the terminal. He tried to resume the manifest entry. His hands hovered over the keys. The system beeped, waiting, but nothing felt important anymore. He backspaced the last crate entry. Closed the file. The silence returned, but not the same kind. It felt fuller, like something was breathing in the room now. In the corner, Zai, the child, was curled near the heater, already asleep. Her robe steamed lightly where it dried against her skin. Neril remained upright, eyes half closed, hands pressed against her thighs, as if preparing to be sent back out. Malric stared at the open door. The wind had shifted slightly, pushing mist into the frame. He moved to close it, but he stopped. He didn't know why. Maybe someone else would come. Maybe no one would. But for now, he left it cracked. Let the rain fall. Let it be known. This door wasn't locked. Not tonight. The night stretched long inside the freight unit, but Malric didn't sleep. He sat in the main room, boots still on, elbows resting on the edge of his knees, staring at the dark monitor. The soft hum of the generator and the rhythmic drip outside filled the silence. Occasionally, he glanced toward the open doorway leading into the storeroom, where the woman and child lay asleep near the heater. He could see just the edge of the sleeping pad and the dull glow outlining their shapes. He should have reported them. That was protocol. Unregistered biological assets, especially hybrids, were meant to be flagged and logged. But the idea of opening a comm line, of letting anyone know they were here, it didn't sit right. Who would he be reporting them to anyway? There were no rescue agencies on Dravara, no protection centers, no one waiting to intervene. All reporting would do is hand their data to a registry that had already discarded them once. He knew the outcome: processing, reassignment, or permanent voiding. No questions asked. He leaned back in the creaky chair and exhaled slowly. No decision yet. Just time. He'd give him one night. One dry night. That much he could offer. The next morning, gray light filtered through the upper vents. Not sunlight, just a slightly less dark shade of rain cloud. Dravara didn't have mornings in the traditional sense. It had a lighter kind of wet. Zai was already awake, sitting cross-legged near the heater with her hands tucked into her robe. She didn't say anything when Malric entered. She just watched him with those clear, silver-blue eyes that somehow looked older than they should have. Alert, quiet, but not afraid. She was waiting again for instructions, maybe, or permission to keep existing. Malric knelt by the heater and checked the power cell. Still running. He slid a protein ration toward her. She took it without hesitation and began unwrapping the seal. No thanks, no smile. Just quiet survival. Behind her, Neril hadn't stirred yet. She was still curled on her side, her legs drawn up toward her chest. Her wrap had dried overnight, but was still in bad shape, thin, fraying along the edges. One of her shoulders was exposed again. Her hair had partially dried, now a dull white curtain across her cheek and neck. He looked around the storeroom. There wasn't much, but it was warmer than outside. The small hygiene station in the back corner still worked. The med pack was half-used but intact. He had clean shirts, not many, and an old thermal pair of leggings folded near the crates. Zai watched him. "She's sick," Malric asked quietly. The girl shrugged. "She doesn't move much after walking." "How long were you out there?" Zai thought about it. "I don't know. She said, "Keep walking until someone opens a door." Malric didn't answer. His throat tightened. "Where did you come from?" he asked. "There was a station near the market," she said. "We stayed under the loading dock at night. They gave us some soup there before they said we had to leave." Neryl stirred behind them. Her fingers flexed slightly. She inhaled, then coughed, a low, dry sound that cracked in her chest. Malric reached for the water bottle and set it beside her. She blinked awake slowly, her body heavy with exhaustion. When she sat up, the wrap shifted again, and she instinctively reached across her chest to fix it. This time, she looked at Malric. "I'll wash," she said, voice low and rough. "Then we'll go." "You don't need to," he replied. She didn't answer immediately. Zai looked between them, but stayed silent. Neryl finally spoke again. "I don't want her to hear me beg again. So just say what we owe you." Malric shook his head. "There's no price." Neryl frowned. "Then why?" He didn't respond. She stood slowly, wobbling for a moment as she balanced on bare feet. Her legs were bruised, not fresh, but faded purple marks and long scrapes. Her movements were careful, slow, not dramatic, the kind of caution that came from pain too familiar to surprise her anymore. He pointed toward the small shower unit. "You can clean up in there. Water's limited, but it runs." She nodded, not in gratitude, but acknowledgement. A few minutes later, she stepped into the narrow chamber and slid the door closed. Malric remained outside. The heater buzzed quietly. Zai finished her food and leaned back against the wall. She seemed calmer now, not comfortable, but no longer waiting to be thrown out. He handed her a clean towel. She held it against her lap and looked at it like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to use it. Inside the shower, the water began to run. Not for long. The unit regulated to 30-second intervals. Just enough to clean the worst of the grime. Neryl didn't sing, didn't cry. She washed quickly, efficiently, like someone who'd done it under pressure before. The soft sounds of water against skin and steel echoed faintly through the walls. When she emerged, her hair was soaked, darkened, clinging to her shoulders. Steam curled from her skin. She wore the gray, thermal shirt Malric had left by the door. It clung to her figure in places, loose in others. The leggings hugged her thighs tightly. She looked present, still guarded, but more upright. Less ghost. She stepped forward, holding the soaked wrap ball in her hands. "Where should I put this?" she asked. "Leave it by the vent," Malric said. "It'll dry eventually." She did. And then, for the first time since arriving, she looked directly at him. Not in fear, not in debt, just looking. "I'm Neryl," she said again, quieter this time. "She's Zai." Malric nodded. "You can stay for now, as long as you need to recover." Neryl's jaw tensed, like she wanted to argue, like she expected this to turn into something else. But nothing came. No demands, no expectations. Zai tilted her head. "Do you live here alone?" "Yes." "Why?" He hesitated. "Too many people out there." Zai nodded. That made sense to her. She curled back into the pad near the heater. Neryl sat down beside her, arms around her knees. Malric stood in the doorway for a moment, then turned back into the main room. He didn't close the door behind him. He didn't report them. He didn't make any decisions yet. But the silence felt different again, no longer empty. For the first time in a long time, he felt the pressure of others breathing in the same space. He wasn't sure if it was a mistake, but it was already done, and tomorrow would come anyway, with or without rain. The next morning came without light, only a slight shift in the rain's rhythm. The steel walls of the freight unit groaned from temperature change, and the dull blue of the status display blinked awake in the dark. Malric stood by the heating plate, waiting for the water to boil. His posture was stiffer than usual, his routine disrupted by the simple fact that he wasn't alone anymore. In the storeroom, movement, quiet rustling, the soft shuffle of small feet. Zai emerged first, robe still damp at the hems, but wrapped tighter around her body. She held her cracked tablet, a stylus tucked into the collar. She didn't speak, just sat on the floor near the heater again and began drawing. Neryl came out moments later, wearing the gray shirt and leggings. Her hair was dry now, less tangled, brushed through with her fingers. The difference wasn't dramatic, but it was enough. She looked cleaner, more awake, more real. She met Malric's eyes, and held his gaze for a second longer than yesterday. I found some food, Maurik said, nodding toward the table. It's basic but hot. Neril approached without hesitation, pulled out one of the crates he used as a makeshift chair, and sat. Zai joined her, kneeling on the floor, plate in hand. The three of them ate in silence. Not uncomfortable silence, just space between people not used to talking. Maurik caught Neril glancing around the room more now, assessing. Not casing it like a thief, but the way someone who had always been ready to leave tried to understand what staying would even look like. Zai drew on her tablet in the corner. Occasionally, she'd glance up at Neril, then at Maurik, then back down, sketching quickly with short, careful strokes. After they ate, Maurik stepped outside. The platform was slick with rain. Crates stacked in uneven rows, some collapsed under their own rust. He checked the generator output reading, low but holding. The fuel cell would last another 3 days unless he took in new freight. He heard the door open behind him. Neril stepped out barefoot, her arms crossed under her chest, breathing in the damp air. I used to think the rain was peaceful, she said. He looked at her. And now it just feels like a leak that no one bothers fixing. They stood like that for a moment. Then she asked, "Do you always stay here?" "In this outpost. I was assigned here after a reorg. I didn't ask to leave. That's not the same as asking to stay." Maurik said nothing. She wasn't wrong. "You were military," she said. Not question. He glanced at her. Manifest audit team. Civilian registry. Before that, Federation cargo security, yes. She nodded slowly. "You move like someone who used to carry a weapon." He shifted his weight. "I don't anymore." "Good," she said. Then, quieter. "We've seen enough weapons." The unspoken weight in that sentence hung between them. But she didn't elaborate, and he didn't press. Back inside, Zai showed them the tablet. She had drawn 3 figures, stick forms, but with detailed faces and hair. MOM and me were labeled in careful writing. The third one, taller, broader, simply said human. She looked up at Maurik and said, very softly, "I didn't know what else to call you." Maurik crouched beside her. "Maurik. My name is Maurik." Zai nodded and scratched out human carefully. Replaced it with Maurik. The spelling wasn't perfect, but the intent was clear. Neril sat nearby, holding the datapad he'd given her earlier, a basic model with local directory access. She was scanning the expired asset logs, possibly to see if their names still appeared anywhere. "You won't find your registry," Maurik said, without turning. "It's been purged. No license, no bond record, no system-flagged incident. Just a void, entry, and silence." She stopped scrolling. "So even if someone wanted to find us, they wouldn't know where to look. They wouldn't even know you existed." Neril set the pad down. A pause. "Then this is the safest we've been in months," she said, almost to herself. Maurik didn't respond, but he heard the implication. Stay might be an option now. A real one. She stood, stretched slowly, not seductively, not guarded, just human. Her shirt lifted slightly at the side, revealing a healed scar beneath her ribs. A clean, precise one, not from violence. A medical cut. He looked at it, then back to her. She noticed. "Sterilization mark," she said simply. "Back when I still had value." He blinked. "That wasn't your choice." She gave a cold smile. "Nothing about my body ever was." Zai, seated in the corner, stayed silent. She had stopped drawing. Maurik spoke carefully. "You're not a slave anymore." Neril met his eyes. "Then don't treat me like one. Not with pity. Not with charity." "I opened the door," he said. "That's it. You walked in." She didn't answer, but something in her face shifted. A small crack in the armor. The heater clicked. Maurik exhaled. "You can stay, as long as you want. I'm not asking for anything." Neril nodded. "Then I'll earn it." Slowly, she turned to help Zai hang the damp linens near the wall vent. Maurik sat at the desk and reopened the terminal. He didn't log anything. No data. No scans. Instead, he opened a blank file. Name, Neril. Status, resident, temporary. Registry, obsolete, reinstatement pending. Name Zai. Status, dependent. Registry, unregistered child. Authorized by M. Thane. He saved it locally, not to the cloud. not to the system, just in case someone needed to remember them. No one had asked him to do it, but he did it anyway. And for the first time in 2 years, he didn't feel like a monitor of forgotten cargo. He felt like a witness, and maybe, just maybe, a keeper of something worth holding on to. Rain dripped from the roof like clockwork, soft, consistent, mechanical. It was early evening, though Dravara 8 offered no difference in light between day or night. The world outside remained gray and wet, indifferent to what changed inside the outpost. Neryl sat on the edge of the sleeping pad, combing through her long white hair with her fingers. Her skin, cleaned and dry, still bore old bruises, some faded, others stubborn along her forearms and thighs. She wasn't hiding them anymore. The gray thermal shirt slipped from one shoulder, revealing the smooth arc of her collarbone and the sharp line of her neck. It wasn't intentional. She didn't even notice. She just looked tired, not from lack of sleep, from too much survival. Zai sat cross-legged on the floor beside her, focused on carefully organizing broken stylus tips and fragments of plastic like they were puzzle pieces. Occasionally, she glanced up at her mother with silent focus. Malric had started to notice how often she did that, like she was always checking, as if Neryl might vanish if she looked away too long. Malric stood in the kitchen alcove, prepping 3 bowls of reheated grain. No one asked him to. He did it because the act gave him something to do. A rhythm. Something other than thinking about how quiet Neryl had gotten in the last few hours. When he returned, Neryl accepted the bowl without a word. She took 1 spoonful, then set it aside. Zai ate slowly, knees pressed together. "Is the shirt all right?" Malric asked quietly. Neryl looked down at herself. "It's fine. It's just that it looks." I said it's fine. She didn't snap, but the interruption was sharp. She caught herself. "Sorry." Malric sat on the crate across from her. "You don't have to explain anything." She hesitated. "I know," but she didn't touch the bowl again. Zai suddenly looked up. "Can we stay here? For more than one night?" Malric turned toward her. The directness of the question caught him off guard. Neryl shifted. "Zai, it's okay," Malric said. "She deserves to ask." Zai stared at him, unmoving. "You said it's safe, that the system erased us. But if we leave and someone sees us..." Neryl's mouth tightened. Malric realized this wasn't the first time Zai had voiced this fear. It was just the first time someone listened. "You can stay," Malric said simply. "Both of you. This isn't a rescue. This isn't a deal. Just stay." Zai looked to her mother. Neryl didn't answer. The silence stretched. Then Neryl stood, set her bowl aside, and walked to the hygiene stall. She closed the door, turned on the water. Steam built quickly in the cramped unit. Through the fog panel, Malric could see her silhouette, blurred, slender still. Zai kept drawing. She didn't look up this time. Minutes passed. Then, the shower door opened. Neryl stepped out, damp again, hair soaked and hanging over one shoulder. The thermal shirt clung to her now, darker in patches, slightly transparent where the fabric hugged her skin. Her bare feet padded against the cold metal floor. She paused just a few steps outside stall. Didn't speak. Malric looked up. "I cleaned myself," she said softly, as if testing the shape of the words. "I smell better now." He didn't move. Didn't speak. Neryl stepped 1 more pace forward, eyes locked on his. "Maybe now," she said, "you'll want me." Malric's stomach tensed. Not from lust. Not from rejection. From fear. The kind that came when something inside you cracked before you were ready. "I didn't open the door for that," he said. His voice came out rougher than he intended. Neryl studied him. Not angry. Not embarrassed. Just quiet. "Then why did you let us in?" He searched for the answer. Not the polite one. The real one. "I don't know," he said. Maybe because no one else did. Her expression didn't change. But she stepped back, just half a step, and turned away. "I'm not useful anymore," she said. "Not in the way I was designed to be." Malric stood now slowly. "I don't want usefulness." She looked over her shoulder. "Then what?" He didn't have a word for it. Not kindness. Not charity. Just something closer to need. Or maybe guilt. But he didn't say any of those things. He just looked at her, soaking wet, proud and bruised, and said, "You're not a machine." Neryl blinked once, as if no one had ever said that to her before. Then she whispered, "I don't know how to be anything else." She turned back toward the heater and sat beside Zai, wrapping the towel around herself. She didn't speak again that night. Malric stood there for a while longer, heart hammering too hard for how little had happened. But something had changed. Not loudly, not permanently, but enough to scare him. Because now he realized something. If they stayed, it wasn't just his space that would change. It would be him. The outpost felt warmer in the morning. Not from temperature, but from presence. Malric noticed it the moment he woke. There were quiet sounds in the storeroom. Faint shifting fabric, the scratch of a stylus on a tablet, the hushed rhythm of two people sharing a space. For the first time in over a year, he wasn't the only heartbeat echoing inside the walls. He got up without dressing fully, just his thermal undershirt, feet bare on the cold floor. As he moved toward the central unit, he paused. Zai was sitting cross-legged near the heater again, tablet resting on her knees. She didn't look up immediately. Her focus was fixed on what she was drawing. Neryl sat behind her, one arm resting gently around her daughter's waist. Her hair was dry and braided now, falling over one shoulder. She wore the same shirt, though now she'd loosely pinned it at the waist, tying it off with a strip of canvas. It fit her better like that, intentionally or not. The leggings clung to her hips. Her eyes looked clearer, more alert. No one spoke. Malric continued into the kitchenette, powered on the heat plate. The water hissed. When he returned with 3 cups of synthroot, Zai took hers without looking up. Neryl accepted it with both hands. "Thank you," she said. He blinked. "You don't have to." "I know," she cut in gently. "But I wanted to." It was the first time she'd used that tone with him. Not cautious, not defensive. Just direct. Zai tapped the tablet and spun it around. "I drew this last night. I waited until you fell asleep." Malric looked. There were 3 figures drawn in blocky lines, but with noticeable detail. One had long white hair. The second, shorter with silver blue eyes and a crooked smile. The third was taller, more square-shouldered. His eyes were darker, marked with a straight line beneath to suggest tiredness. Beneath the drawing were 3 words. M-O-M. Me. Malric. He didn't speak at first. Then he said, "You spell my name right this time." Zai grinned. "Do we look like that?" Neryl asked, brushing a thumb along the edge of the screen. Zai nodded. "I wanted it to look like we were a family." Neryl's smile faltered. Not from sadness, but something else. A tightness in her jaw. She nodded once, kissed the top of Zai's head, and set the tablet aside. Later, Malric stepped outside to check the generator. It was down 7%. The cargo logs hadn't been updated in 3 days. Technically, that would flag on the next audit cycle, but no one ever checked this zone. Not anymore. He moved back inside and found Neryl standing near the rear crates. She was folding linen. Slowly, precisely. Her posture had changed. Not defensive anymore, but not relaxed either. She noticed him watching. "I know how to do things," she said. "I didn't say you didn't. I just want to be useful." She turned, folding the last cloth. "Not because you need me to be, but because I need to feel like I am." He nodded once. She hesitated. "Do you live like this every day? Alone? Eating rations? Fixing broken things?" "It's easier that way," he said. "Is it?" He looked at her. "Do you ever wonder if your quiet is actually loneliness, just dressed better?" Malric let out a dry breath. "I used to think I deserved it." Neryl didn't ask why. She didn't need to. Instead, she stepped closer, just one pace. Not invading, not testing. She stood beside him, their shoulders nearly touching. "I'm not offering myself," she said softly. "I know what that looks like, what it sounds like. I've said those lines before, but I'm not saying them now." Malric's voice was steady. "I wouldn't take it if you did." She nodded, but she said, "I want to learn what it's like to choose someone, not just survive beside them." He turned to her. Her face wasn't asking for anything. It wasn't baiting him or testing his patience or begging for safety. She was just there, open, vulnerable, tired, but still standing. And that made him feel something unfamiliar. Not hunger, not desire, permission. He reached out slowly, his hand hovering just above hers. "Okay," he said, "then let's choose each other, one day at a time." Her fingers closed around his, carefully, gently, like someone handling something fragile for the first time. In the corner, Zai pretended not to look, but her drawing had changed. The figures were closer together now. Later that night, they didn't sleep far apart. Neryl lay near the heater, her hand resting over Malric's. Zai curled beside her mother, holding the corner of the shared blanket. No one locked the door. No one spoke of leaving. And for the first time in all three of their lives, it felt like a beginning. Dravara. 8 remained soaked in its perpetual drizzle, but inside the outpost, the air had changed. The room no longer felt hollow. There were blankets left out, cups not yet washed, and voices, low, cautious, but human, speaking now and then between long silences. The freight unit was still a place for the forgotten, but for 3 people inside it, it had become something else, a place that wasn't trying to push them out. Malric stood by the vent shaft in the early hours, shirt half-buttoned, listening to the soft, even breathing from the other room. He hadn't slept much, not because of discomfort, because something in him was too alert, too aware of what had changed. They were still here. Neryl, Zai, still sleeping under his roof, still trusting him, and that scared him more than being alone ever had. He moved to the small mirror above the wash basin. His reflection looked older than he remembered. Creases around the eyes, streaks of gray more pronounced in his short hair. He hadn't noticed those lines forming. Not until now, when someone else might be looking at him too. He heard soft footsteps behind him and turned. Neryl stood in the doorway, wearing the same gray shirt and leggings. The shirt was slightly wrinkled now, stretched from repeated wear, slipping again off one shoulder. Her hair was down, loosely braided, and her eyes looked more rested than he'd ever seen them. She didn't speak right away. Malric leaned back against the sink, arms crossed. "You sleep at all?" she asked, voice low. "Enough," he said. She nodded, stepping further into the room. "You don't look like it. Neither do you." She smiled faintly. "I dreamed we were still outside, that you hadn't opened the door." He didn't answer. "It's strange," she said. "I didn't realize how quiet survival makes you. You stop talking to yourself, even your own head. Everything just becomes instructions." She approached the table, picked up a cracked mug, and turned it in her hands. "Eat. Clean. Don't get seen. Don't draw attention." Her fingers paused on the rim of the cup. "And now?" Malric asked it before she could. Neryl looked up. "Now." There's too much silence again, but in a different way. He waited. "It's not cold silence," she added. "It's warm, but I don't know what to do with it." Malric stepped closer. "You don't have to do anything." She looked at him, eyes unreadable. "That's what scares me." He understood that too well. Later, they shared breakfast, real food this time, not just rations. He had found a small crate of sealed grain packs and some powdered greens stashed behind an used freight. Neryl offered to cook. She didn't ask. She just did. Zai sat at the corner of the room, quietly peeling the corner of her drawing tablet apart, distracted. "Is something wrong?" Malric asked her gently. Zai hesitated, then looked at Neryl. "You're acting different." Neryl stopped stirring the pot. Zai added, "You laugh more." Neryl turned to her daughter. "Is that bad?" Zai shook her head. "No, but it makes me nervous." Neryl crouched in front of her. "What?" Zai's answer was quiet. "Because the last time you got comfortable, we had to leave." The silence after that was deep and real. Malric stepped forward, kneeling beside them both. "You don't have to leave here," he said. "Not unless you choose to." Zai studied his face. "You're not going to send us away later?" "No." "What if you change your mind?" He paused. Then he said, "Then I'd tell you first. Not lock the door behind you." That seemed to settle something. Zai stood and walked back to her blanket near the heater, curling up with the tablet again. Neryl stayed, kneeling on the floor, head bowed, slightly. Her voice was quieter now. "I didn't realize how much she remembers." "You think she forgot?" Malric asked. "I hope." There was another pause. Then she looked up at him, eyes searching. "Why are you really alone, Malric?" He didn't answer immediately. "I lost someone," he said finally, "during a cargo job. A woman. She died because I followed orders instead of instincts." Neryl's brow furrowed slightly. "And you came here to forget her?" He shook his head. "I came here to stop doing anything that might matter." She leaned forward, voice low. You already broke that rule. They stayed like that for a moment, close, knees almost touching. Neryl's hand brushed his. Deliberate. Slow. He didn't pull away. I don't want to break you, she whispered. Not by needing too much. You're not, he said. You're not breaking anything. She sat back, her expression unreadable. Not suspicious. Not sure either. That night, after Zai was asleep, Neryl didn't retreat to the far wall. She curled beside the heater with Malric close behind, their backs touching, breathing synced in the quiet. There were no words exchanged. But in the dark, something was being rebuilt. Carefully, honestly, and neither of them ran from it. Morning came slowly, with the same soft drizzle that never left Dravara 8. The freight unit smelled faintly of steam and metal. Malric sat alone in the main room, watching the heater's orange glow flicker against the far wall. His mug was still warm in his hands, untouched. His mind wasn't on it. Neryl hadn't spoken much since last night. She hadn't pulled away, either. That small space between them, backs touching, breath sinking, had lasted longer than he expected. Long enough for him to feel her warmth. Long enough for him to start wondering what would happen if it didn't stop. Now, hours later, the silence felt heavier. He heard a sound from the storeroom, then Zai's voice. Mama. A pause. Then Neryl's soft reply. I'm here. Malric stood and moved toward the door. Zai was sitting up now, hair a mess, her blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She looked small in the morning light, her skin paler than usual. Her eyes were on her mother, watching closely. Neryl sat at the edge of the pad, her knees pulled up. She looked calm, but her eyes were distant, focused inward. Zai spoke again, quieter. Are we going to stay here forever? Neryl didn't answer at first. Malric stepped into the room and crouched beside them. You can if you want. Zai looked down. But what if she leaves? Neryl blinked. Zai, you always leave, the girl whispered. When you get quiet like this. When you start looking out the window too long. That's when it happens. Malric looked to Neryl. She didn't deny it. He realized this was a pattern. Not abandonment, withdrawal. Retreating emotionally before it hurt. Before she could be pushed. Neryl reached for Zai's hand. I'm not leaving. You say that, Zai said, pulling back, but you've said that before. Neryl didn't try again. She just sat there, breathing shallowly. Malric spoke. Then let me say it. Zai looked at him. I'm not your father, he said. But if you want me to be, if you're okay with that, then I'm not going anywhere either. Zai's mouth parted slightly. She didn't smile. She just studied him like she was waiting to see if the words would fall apart. They didn't. Neryl stood, quietly. She walked into the next room, not out of anger, but to breathe. To think. Malric followed her minutes later. She stood near the door, arms crossed over her chest, looking at the storm outside. She's right, Neryl said. I do run. Sometimes not with my feet, just with my mind. You didn't run last night. I wanted to. He waited. Neryl turned to him. You think this is something simple? That I just flip a switch and suddenly I belong here? No, he said. I think it's something we keep choosing. Or we don't. She stepped closer. I want to choose it, she said. I'm just terrified it won't want me back. He looked at her. It already does. She reached out, slowly, touched his jaw with her fingertips. Her hand trembled, not from cold, from restraint. She leaned in until her forehead rested against his. I don't want this to be another transaction, she whispered. It isn't. Then, I need you to hold me. Not because you want something from me, just because I'm here. He slid his arms around her, pulling her close. She melted into him, pressing her face to his chest, fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt. No tension, no seduction, just presence. And it was enough. Later that evening, Zai fell asleep early, curled beside the heater again with a new tablet he'd found in a buried crate. She had drawn another picture. This one was simple. 3 figures inside a small square labeled home. No names this time. Just a window in the corner with rain drawn outside. And 3 cups on the table. Neryl stepped out of the shower wearing the shirt again, damp from steam, unbuttoned slightly at the top. Her hair was wet. Her cheeks flushed from the heat. She didn't say anything. She walked across the room and sat beside Malric, who was working silently on the manifest system. She leaned her head on his shoulder. He closed the terminal. No words needed. She looked up at him once. Their eyes locked, and then she kissed him, soft, unhurried, with no calculation behind it. He returned it just as softly. It wasn't desperation. It wasn't comfort. It was the first time either of them had been chosen, not out of fear or survival or loneliness, but because they finally wanted to stay. Weeks passed. The rain never stopped, but it no longer felt like a threat. Just part of the backdrop. The freight unit still creaked at night. The generators still grumbled in the mornings, but now there were voices that filled those spaces. Movement. Life. Zai sat at the table beside the heater, humming quietly as she arranged meal packs by size and color. She wore a clean tunic now, still a bit oversized but dry, soft, and intact. Her hair had grown longer. She brushed it herself now, carefully, every morning. Neryl was in the hygiene stall, steam curling under the doorway. Her humming drifted through the walls. She had started to hum more often, sometimes real melodies, sometimes just sound. That alone said enough. Malric poured 3 cups of tea, the last of their synth fruit supply, and glanced at the small data screen beside the sink. The weekly manifest was updated, inventory logged, and a note sent to Central Registry. Manifest checkpoint number 087. Resident count 3. No discrepancies. He didn't need to lie. No one asked questions anymore. No one checked. The system had stopped watching, and for once that was a gift. Neryl emerged from the stall wearing a slate blue shirt Malric had stitched together from leftover freight fabric. It hung just right, low over one shoulder, long down the back. Her leggings had been mended by her own hand. He could see the careful stitches. She still walked barefoot across the cold floor, but now she moved with a kind of relaxed weight. Not hunted, not guarded, present. She took her cup and sat beside him on the edge of the low cot. Their thighs touched. "You did the report?" she asked, sipping. He nodded. 3 residents. No details, just a number. "That's all we are to them," she said. "That's all we need to be." Zai came over and climbed up beside Neryl. She handed over her tablet. "Can I show you something?" They looked. It was another drawing, neater now, more practiced. The same 3 figures, her, Neryl, Malric. But this time, all their hands were joined, and behind them, a small structure was drawn. Not the outpost, but something newer, smoother, home-shaped. "What's this?" Neryl asked gently. Zai smiled. "A house. When we have time to build one." Malric looked at her. "You want to build something?" Zai nodded. "Not today, but maybe later, when the rain finally stops." Neryl kissed her daughter's head and pulled her close. The girl tucked herself between them, arms folded. No one said it, but the words were there. This is home, not something found, something made. Later, Malric and Neryl worked together near the generator. She handed him tools without needing to ask what he needed. He tightened bolts with calm, practiced hands. They barely spoke. They didn't have to. She wiped a smear of grease from his jaw with her sleeve. He kissed her in return. Light. Familiar. "Still want to be here?" he asked. Her answer came easily. "Yes." That night, they ate together on the floor. No special meal, just warmth and closeness. After Zai fell asleep near the heater, Malric and Neryl curled up together on the cot, the blanket pulled high. He held her without fear now, and she didn't flinch. Neryl whispered into the dark, "I didn't think anyone would ever look at me and not want to fix me or use me." He tightened his hold gently. "I didn't want to fix you. I just wanted you to stop walking in the rain." She pressed her forehead to his chest. They didn't speak again that night. They didn't need to. And when the morning came, gray, wet, ordinary, it was perfect. Not because the world had changed, but because they had. Together.